My name is Ingrid. I'm from University Indonesia, and today I will present my study about transgressive architecture, investigating the limits. My study tries to identify mechanisms of transgression in urban spaces and explore how acts of transgression define architectural boundaries. The study will demonstrate an understanding of architecture that appreciates instability and negotiation of limits in space and society. The word transgress means to go or walk across. The term is generated in the 1950s as a part of cultural discourse, and in the last 13 years, it has reemerged in arts, humanities, and social sciences. Bernard-Schumi is the one who firstly explored transgression in architectural discourse in 1976 with his essay that implies that architecture is inherently transgressive. Architecture necessarily breaks or goes beyond acceptable limits. In looking at transgressions and their relationship to the architecture, it is worth referring to the most straightforward relationship between body and space. City users have a different way of understanding and experiencing cities than the professionals or institutions defining urban space and producing the built environment. The following are two examples of analysis of transgression in urban space through the body. The first one is Minibar Ankara. It is a space created by a group of teenagers through several leisure activities with friends involving liquor, which carries out on the streets around the Ankara area in Turkey. The minibar becomes the name of the action and the space it created. The minibar questions the boundaries that define urban spaces and formulates them for its spatiality, testing the limitations and regulation of physically, socially, and legally constructed spaces. While minibar is constantly moving, the space it takes up and how to use it varies from time to time. For example, one time they can sit on the hood of a parked car, and then the other time they can use the railing to put their belongings, and other time they can congregate on the sidewalk. The second case is skateboarding in the Atas. This is a mapping by tracing from a video part of a local skateboarder in Jakarta named Rubianda. In the video, he performs several tricks at 8 points that differ from the type of the obstacles, from flat ground to benches to sidewalks and to stairs. Street skateboarders don't run away from urban space, but they work physically against it. They scratch paints, grind handrails, use obstacles, even when they use wax to smooth up the surface. This is also considered as a transgression into urban space. Transgression often occur in two spaces. The first one is the relic space. The space has no official program or use. The beauty lies in its irregularity, where boundaries between objects are broken or appear to have no limitations. And the second one is the overlooked space. It is a space that we encounter every day, nothing special, so we are rarely aware of its existence. And here is a study of 20 cases based on the limit and what kind of the transgression. I will describe some of the most interesting ones. The first one is Dalston Mill. The site is located behind a building still under construction. The spatial boundary is the scaffolding that is just let enough voids for 1 to 2 people to pass through. These boundaries and openings are emphasized by adding wooden walls, packed like broken bricks. From the scaffolding boundary that looks like it is only for people with an interest in the construction process, it becomes a clear and impressive space that invites the public to enter. The second one is double happiness billboard. The limit is that billboard is a space just for pictures or images. This situation is broken into a space for playing swings. The users in it become objects that can be seen. At the same time, they became the subjects that can look at the city's background from above the billboard. And then in the mobile brain case, the limit is using a parking space designated for the cars, and the transgression uses a space for humans to sit around with brass on it and the car's license plate at the behind at the back to clarify that the situation is like being parked. And then this is the another 10 of the cases. The first one is in salvage landscape. The boundary is the former fire site that transgresses the limit by using burnt out building materials. In Snell's shell system, the boundary is a living space that stays in one place only, a condition which to own a house, one must also own land. The situation is transgressed by creating a living space that can be rolled up, continuously moving without being tied to land ownership status. And then in the Untitled Dublin, the transgression was carried out on the roofs of buildings on the sidelines of the city. The artwork gives a new tattoo to the face of the town. And finally, in Xiangshan campus, Hongshu transgressed against the trend of development in China, which was very modern and futuristic. Instead, he brought back traditional buildings into contemporary architectural scores. And then using a matrix, I compared the 20 cases by categorizing them into spatial mechanisms, institutional mechanisms, the transgressors, the users, time spans, and the context. And then I added a level of transgression with breadth gradations for the spatial and institutional mechanisms. It's for spatial, from the lowest is fill, modify, reveal, and the highest is breaking. For institutional is conjoin, alter, contrast, unannounced, and the highest is disregard. Transgression that fall into the fill category are when people turn side into the market without permission, do blockades, or fill the wall surface with graffiti. Modify is when the transgression changes a parking lot into a place to sit in the afternoon, changes user roles, and increases the house's capability to keep moving. Reveal is when marking exhaust fans with blown plastic, opening access to secure construction sites, and declaring fire locations with burned architectural elements. Lastly, for spatial mechanisms, breaking is when a skateboarder grinds a handrail or an artist draws an entire fast food curtain. On the other hand, for the institutional, conjoin is when an existing program can be combined with a new one. Alter is slightly make some changes. Contrast is creating a completely different agenda. Overt unannounced is when intervening without giving any notice. Last but not least, disregard for the institution is when violating the main rules. And from this, I try to analyze further the degrees and the relations, which one tends to transgress more by putting which cases belong to the categories. In conclusion, architect as transgressor tends to break the limit in higher degree or spatial mechanism. On the contrary, the user tends to be the one who transgresses to a higher degree institutionally. A higher degree of transgressive architecture tends to have private users, spatially but not institutionally. The time span in a higher degree of transgression tends to be short in spatial and institutional mechanisms. And finally, transgression in overlooked space tends to have a higher degree or of spatial and institutional mechanisms for breaking the limit. This is the display of patterns that define the relation and degrees of the transgression. Thank you for your kind attention, and here are some of them.